our YouTube channel. Actually, I'm hearing they're called podcast. So welcome to Teach Crest podcast. So behind me is my beautiful work. I do landscaping. So these are my canna lilies. That's why I'm here. So we have the yellow ones, we have the pink ones. Yeah, this is my work. Look at that. Yeah, I do a beautiful job. So enjoying the background, and I wanted us to speak about CBE in Kenya, the competence-based education. Now that grade 10 is here with us in senior school, what is my take, especially in regards to the subject that the students through? So as I was through various platforms online, I was saying that Fasihi, literature, and theory are not popular subjects among the students in grade 10. However, I have a different story, you see. I'm meant to understand that in some schools we have as low as an enrollment of 2 students. So last term I had over 22 students, and the ones who took the exam were 39. Then upon re-advising, some dropped, some are yet to come, but so far, now that others have come to school, others who are sent for school fees, I've only had 12 students. And the books that were brought, like the Kichacha Mlungula, they were 22. So 2 for the teachers, 20 are more than enough so far for the 12 students, and that is quite commendable. So let me start with looking or analyzing whether the enrollment was by chance or by design. Some believe it was by design, given that, in previous years, the very groups that have been going through these set books, which are usually political, they have opened up the minds of the Kenyans, and not only Kenyans but Africans in general. For example, the Gen Z revolution that we saw was a result of some of the books that we have been learning. For me, I did River and the Source. We did, which one? When the Sun Goes Down. Will Rider. There was Betrayal in the City. For Kiswahili, Kidagaa Kimemwozea, Damu Nyeusi, and all these stories have made me to be who I am. Yeah, sometimes I come out as a vocal person, especially in human rights activation, and that tells you something. These books were doing something great. So I think it was last year when we had the echoes of war going rounds, yeah, and it's because of that I believe people are seeing literature and Fasihi are being killed by design. It was not by chance. However, we want to look at some of the outlier reasons as to why we could be having low enrollments in Fasihi, in literature, and theory classes. Yeah. I beg to apologize for those who will feel that maybe we over exaggerate about Fasihi and literature, maybe because we are teachers in those fields and we stand to benefit, of course. So if there is no student, what am I going to do? However, it's also a plus. When I have few students, I can do more. If it's going to the library to do research, watafanya tena sana. They will stand to pick my brain than when there are many. I stand to benefit when there are fewer in number, in terms of marking and setting, unlike when I have a bigger class size. Trying to find maybe a mean becomes a problem. So it's a win stroke loss situation. It's a loss in terms of the wastage of resources. You see, like in a school we have 22 books so far for the Kicha. The rest I'm going to count. And we have many Kiswahili teachers, so you can imagine the waste that is going when we only have maybe under 50 students taking that Fasihi. However, we don't force, so yeah, we're good. Yeah. So one, people were saying the foundation is one of the reasons as to why students did not take Fasihi or literature. Yeah. So meant to understand, like in junior school, they were being given teachers who are not experts in those things. For example, we have been seeing a lot of JS teachers are in the sciences, so they might not deliver what is really expected, or in terms of the delivery, they're not given motivation. You understand? We, like what we are doing for Form 3, who are doing Guza Jadi, we just give them a very simple excerpt, the dondo. Once they're able to extract things like stylistic devices, iyo mitindo, it is easier than giving them the complex questions like the composition based, so that they get discouraged. So we start small. So when you find someone is not an expert, they have limited time and the books have to be done, there's a possibility that influenced the number of students who are interested in Fasihi and literature. Number two is that the books that are set books are usually having complex plots, and that's true to some point, starting with Walenisi. However, once you understand the flow of the books, I think they're easy. Even Guza Jadi iko na plot ambayo ni changamano, lakini kiko sawa tu, kinaweza kupitisha yale maudhui ambayo yalikuwa yanakusudiwa. So that would have been a reason maybe people, or rather students, don't become interested in doing literature and Fasihi because of the number of books and the fact that some are not interesting, so that they can enthuse their minds. Reason number three as to why probably they never chose the two learning subjects is about misleading views about literature and Fasihi, that they cannot promote development. And clearly, from the example that I've given before, it's so clear that through Fasihi and literature, we are contributing to development. How? Through publishing of the books, the poems, we are raising awareness. The books are being sold. The publishers are getting money. That money is being used in developing our economies. The licenses which are being given to even the editors and other personnel is channeled to the government, and it's helping in terms of development. Intellectually, people are developing. So what type of development do we expect, which would have come from other learning areas and not Fasihi or literature? So it's not necessarily true that Fasihi and literature will not lead to development. They do. In fact, to raise awareness, for example, about nuclear power development in Kenya, it should have been here with us. Imagine we just have only 4 years to 2030 and we have not yet worked on that. So it's a big deal. Yeah, we can use that. We go for drama festivals, we go for music festivals. It's the information that has been captured and Fasihi and literature that will help us grow. It will help us to develop gradually. Yeah. Another thing is because of fear. Fear of the unknown. Like right now, by the time they are done with senior school, in Fasihi, they should have done 30 stories in the anthology Kichwa cha Mlungula. They'll do poems. There are around 30 also, hayo mashairi. They will also do tamthilia, that is a play. They'll do a riwaya, whatever we call a novel. They will also do a biography. like Mchongoma, they'll do that Mlemavu Si Mimi, and all these stories. So perhaps because of fear, that's why they never undertook. But I believe a student means studying. So what are you doing if you're not going to study? We have a culture where in this generation I rarely see people reading. So I don't know, it's laziness or it's because of the short listening and concentration span. I don't know, but maybe because of that fear, how am I going to handle and capture all these things, is contributing. But from my experience, like the 30 stories that related, it's easy to capture. There are very few characters. I don't see a big deal. For 3 years you should be able to cover that, unless you're lazy. Yeah, I'm sorry. So another thing uh, is because of the cost of books. Men, books in Kenya, it's true they're expensive. However, I think for those who are in public schools, they have access to these books, yeah, courtesy of KICD and the government and the Ministry of Education. So that should not have been a big deal. And in any case, I believe desperate moments require desperate measures. So if you really want something, you'll go for it, even if it means borrowing, even if it means going to a library. You'll always find ways to survive. Yeah, it's that simple. Another thing is because people have a limited reading culture. So the idea that you're going to read all these books doesn't sit well with most people. But I believe and I know one of the core competencies of the whole system, the CBE, there is what we call learning to learn. So how are you going to learn if you don't have the self-initiative to read on your own, to read books, even for pleasure? You don't have to read only for passing exams, reading for knowledge, yeah. So a reading culture is really important because we say readers are leaders. You can't lead people if you don't read. You're going to run out of ideas. The time I was vying for a Congress person in the School of Education at Kenyatta University, what kept me afloat is because of reading. Even how you're going to present yourself, how you're going to convince your people, how, books like from John Maxwell really helped me to be a better person. Even how I was branding myself, reading books from various authors really opened how I viewed politics. So really, we have no option but to read, yeah. So if you think you're not going to read by avoiding literature and Fasihi, you're still going to read it elsewhere. In history, we have a lot of reading in language itself, yeah, reading everywhere. Because those books are kind of scanty. So for you to go and know, this is what I know, this is what I want to learn, this is what I've learned upon exposure to many kind of books or other platforms of learning, you'll need exposure. You have no option but to read. Yeah. Another thing uh, is limited perspective about the application of the learning areas as far as Fasihi and literature are concerned. However, I think by doing Fasihi and literature, this is a wide application. You can do editorial, you can do journalism, you can do teaching, you can do analysis of books, you can be an author. Right now I'm creating content. If I was not an expert in Fasihi or literature, I will need to be doing that. It will be a bit hectic. So really, most of the 21st century jobs are yet to be discovered. So yeah, the more you know, at least the more you'll be relevant. Yeah. And what is the point to have maybe the technical know-how, yet you can't apply it anywhere? Yeah. So it's good that we get to point out some of the issues which are within the society, because we understand that literature is the mirror of the society. There are things that we don't talk about, but there are emerging issues like use of technology. We have uh, relationship issues which are there. We have the family dynamics. Like right now, we are starting to normalize a single parent family as a family. We don't have to necessarily say that a complete family has to be made up of father, mother, and children. Yeah. So it's literature and Fasihi really are helping to um, magnify what is in the society and keep us on track. Another thing is the coincidence in the structure of the whole system. Okay, but so far I haven't seen a big deal. Like in our school, we have 5 Fasihi lessons, which includes a double Fasihi, and that's enough even to cover maybe a story, and you get to analyze. You have more time. So and there are other sessions that you can have, even the watching sessions, to cover for the lost time. You don't need more. What you need is quality. So the keyword is there is quality over quantity. We don't need much time to cover what should be covered, as long as you're guided by the curriculum design and you have the resources within you. Go for it. Go for it. So another reason is people appear disinterested, um, and they tend to imagine, for example, if I want to do medicine, there's no way I'm going to apply Fasihi or literature or even CRA. But we have been seeing doctors like Dr. Njue, the one who does stuff about Izagaina. He prays on TikTok for his um, patients and how, you know, he is humane. I believe he could have picked those traits maybe from the Fasihi and literature classes, because we get to analyze about the tone, the mood, and such kind of things. So even how we give characteristics of the characters, or rather the character traits, somehow uh, we ingrain the values. Yeah, and that's why you can tend to find, for him, I will say he's humane in how he treats his patient. He's kind, and that's what people want. uh, Even as a teacher, I've realized not everyone wants to come and learn. Some just want to be loved. Yeah, so you treat them as humans even before we come to the business part. Okay, another thing that I realized is the parents. Some parents are not engaged. A child will be interested in Fasihi and literature, or even the theory and other subjects, but they're not supported fully. Maybe in terms of paying for the set book staging. Yeah, and that calls um, for maybe more engagement with their parents, so that they understand that there is no subject that is superior than the other. Together, we can always achieve more. Yeah. Another thing that I saw is that in this case, we are seeing now that somehow, as much as the low enrollment will be by either chance or design, it is what it is. We'll go with who is there. Then if it's one student, we will show up. I will show up for that student. Yeah. So, what are the solutions to some of the problems? I've already said that maybe we get to engage the parents and other stakeholders to support. In terms of the expensive books, maybe we have more publishers, more time to publish so that the books reach the areas very fast. In terms of implementation of the curriculum, us as experts to also ensure we try to make it as appealing as possible to our students. Sometimes let them watch, let them participate, let them engage. You don't have to do the chalk and talk kind of delivery. Yeah. Another thing, we get to strengthen our curriculum. Yeah. so that it covers things that are also interesting, even in terms of tasting. Let it be something that is having a wide scope and really captures the minds of the students here. Okay, so what are the effects of the low enrollment? One is the distinction of the reading culture. However, we cannot really say that there is extinction of the reading culture, because Fasihi and literature are taking different forms, and this includes film, music. So really, it doesn't have to be the traditional forms that you're used to, like the books. So reading is reading. Even just reading a post, coming across this live and you're reading something, that counts for something, because you're improving your vocabulary, how you view your world from another person's lens. It's still a win. Another thing is moral erosion. Ooh. Very good. Even in Fasihi, I've been saying this. Dhima moja ya fasihi ni kuadilisha, inatufunza maadili. In Fasihi and Literature, we were encouraging the students to even give us what is the moral lesson they have learnt. So you can imagine, when we don't integrate Fasihi and literature to the English and Kiswahili so that they're separate, it's a big deal, because there'll be moral erosion. They don't know some of the ideal morals, how they should behave, And I saw someone complaining that in other countries, a child has been, in the African context, a child needs to be respected. All of a sudden, they're coming with words like bruh, fuck, and it doesn't sound nice. At first, you think it's classy, but it's not classy. And that's how disrespect comes in. So that is one thing we expect naturally. Another thing is people are losing their roots. By reading or exposure to Fasihi and literature, even theory about the African traditional religion, they were getting a bit exposed to their roots. And it's really important, because at this stage, we understand that these students have an identity crisis. So they need to know where they're coming from and where they're headed to. If they're coming in to learn, they need to get out to serve. So who are they going to serve? From my experience applying for the Chevening scholarship, I realized that I needed to have a strong statement of purpose, and that included having a story, a narrative about the society I come from and how I want to be a change maker. If I say, for example, I'm Nelson Mandela, I must have seen the apartheid regime that was there, and I wanted to make a change. So if the student doesn't know who he or she is, who she wants to be, it becomes almost impossible even to bag those opportunities, because they don't know. If I have my hair, my normal hair, I don't have to expose it to things that are not good for it, just because I want to appear in a certain way. So then, even having that mind to ask, is it important to wear a uniform and such kind of things? Partly they are answered in Fasihi and Literature. We get to open our minds and ask. Let's be inquisitive and not just taking everything as a Bible or whatever. So questioning. Another thing is we are delaying freedom. Remember, we had started on a good note with exposure to these books that were opening us to even issues like neocolonialism. we are doing great for ourselves. So you can imagine now that Fasihi is separate, literature is separate from the languages. Probably we are going to have a delay in that, and it is a win for someone. Guess who? That's a question. Another thing is we are killing creativity. Yeah. You get to read some of the stories and issues and you wonder, they're not credible. They don't have credible storylines. Someone tells you about maybe witchcraft, about talking to a lion and such kind of things, and they're not realistic. I believe it's because they don't read a lot. So we have been recommending all along they read more books, especially storybooks. So I tend to wonder, now that we have separated Fasihi and literature, and to make matters worse, we have low enrollments. Probably these students' creativity will be below, even how they'll be expressing themselves. Imagine, and we are in the digital era where storytelling pays, your mouth will feed you. If you don't talk, well, how you going, even humor, they lack humor. Yeah. So that is it. Anyway, so that is what is happening in CBE in Kenya, and we have come to a point where we're accepting that Fasihi and literature are taking different forms. We might be appearing as rigid to change, especially in the splitting of Fasihi from the other languages. But it's true. Yeah, maybe because we're products of the 844, we could be advocating for the integration. And it's true that you cannot have a culture that is different from the language. Language and culture are integrated. That's why you'll find someone like they were writing a speech. That is what my Form 3s were tested. And you'll find someone is writing a speech. They have someone who is older than them in the way they were listening, and they use the word shikamo. No, they were the elder, they have juniors, and they're asking them shikamo. It was not adding sense. In the Kiswahili culture, it is the junior to address the senior, so you greet. So when it's the other way around, I don't know what will happen. So another thing is the confusion that is there, but I believe with proper guidance, they'll be okay. Our students will be good, other stakeholders will be good, parents will be good, as long as we achieve what we want. Another thing about people having the belief that Fasihi and literature are hard. It's not difficult. It's among easy because everything is there. Like you're asked about stylistic devices and you've been given an exact, it's just there. Pick from there. You're asked to give themes. They're just there. These are things which are with you. And we get to appreciate literature and Fasihi on a daily basis. So, anyway, having all said that, it's good that we emphasize literature and Fasihi and other learning areas, especially given that they are beneficial as far as entertainment is concerned, in moral direction. They are source of income, for teachers, for the lecturers, for the authors, for content creators, for the leaders, for the editors. You get to earn. So if everyone is looking for the money, not after chopper, that is your go-to. Another thing is creating creativity and the emotional attachment. Yeah, that's a good thing.